Hi guys, this is Emma. My channel is The Vlog Lady, and today I'm going to be talking about part 6 of Twin Peaks. I did not record a reaction for this, but I'm just going to talk about the episode. So I'm going to start by talking about the Dougie stuff, where we started. We started where we left off. Kind of a surprising place to start, I thought, because I didn't expect them to do that, basically. Pretty funny that Dougie was still standing there after all that time. It's kind of a little bit frustrating with Dougie now, because I just want the real Coop back. And that scene where we had the one-armed man telling Coop just to wake up, I mean, I was screaming, "Wake up, Coop," as well, because I just really want him back. The interactions between Dougie's wife, Janie, and his son made me think that we perhaps are supposed to think that the real Dougie is not much different to this Coop, because they are making allowances for the fact that he doesn't speak very often, he's not behaving in the right manner. So I wonder if we're supposed to think that the real Dougie, well, the false Dougie, is as vapid as Coop is acting now. If this isn't far off Dougie's normal behaviour, then no wonder he got himself into trouble with these guys who he owes money to. The son kind of treating his father as if he's the one that's taking charge in the relationship. Maybe he did that with Dougie as well as he's doing it with Coop now. So we see the one-armed man telling Coop to wake up, and this suggests to me that Coop actually has the ability to come out of this coma-like state that he's in, rather than needing something external to regain his senses. But I noticed that the one-armed man was sort of wafting his arm, as if he was trying to move energy from the Black Lodge to Coop, perhaps to wake him up, to give him some magic. I'm not sure, but the next scene we see Dougie go through his case files, and he is alerted by these sparkly gold lights where to make the marks on the paper. I wasn't sure what was going on there. At first it seemed like the lights were trying to tell him how to complete the forms, but then he started doodling and he seemed to be drawing a ladder and some stairs. And then I thought, is that a ladder and the floor of the Red Room? Or does it represent something like the mind? Perhaps he's trying to tell himself that he has to climb upwards out of the coma-like state that he's in to reach a state of enlightenment. I have no idea. But so next I'm going to talk about the Diane reveal, and it was revealed that Laura Dern is in fact playing Diane. When we got a close-up of her at the back, I thought that she had a weird kind of style. It's almost like alien chic. Not the kind of Diane I would have expected, to be quite honest. She looked a little hardened. That didn't surprise me. If someone had been in a relationship, a working relationship, at least with Coop, then they would be upset by his disappearance. The relationship that Diane and Coop had back then, Coop was saying things to Diane that he didn't really need to say to her on those recordings. He was being intimate without needing to be. So perhaps there is an intonation that Cooper and Diane had a relationship, a personal relationship at one point, or else they could have just been very close, and the loss of Coop affected Diane very badly. And I also wondered if that relationship with Coop had purely been a very friendly working relationship, and that actually Diane and Albert had had some kind of relationship that was personal, because Albert, the way he looked at her in that scene, there was something between them. That look that he gave her was filled with meaning that I can't decipher just yet, but it was a tantalizing introduction to Diane. Obviously we didn't return to her at all after that, and I think that Laura Dern being Diane does open the route to a future relationship between Diane and Coop, because of the fact that we know that Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern work so well on camera together, and the fact that Diane has had this past relationship with Coop as well, and that she probably knows him intimately, just from his recordings, if nothing else. So moving on to Richard Horne. First see him in a hangar with the character called Red, who was played by Balthazar Getty. Incidentally, the name Red doesn't seem like it might be a coincidence, considering the labeling of everything connected to the Black Lodge. So I wonder if he is imbued with some kind of power from the Black Lodge, or if he is a character from the Black Lodge in the same way the Treemans were. He reminded me a lot, Red, of that kid magician, the grandson from the original series. I don't think that Balthazar Getty is the right age. I think he should be like 10 years younger. So I don't think that's the same character, but the magic trick that he seemingly performed in front of Richard Horne reminded me a lot of the creamed corn moment with Donna. Alternatively, that whole sequence could have been just a drug haze, because Richard was so far gone on whatever he had taken. In my last two videos I did discuss the possibility that Richard could have been a victim of abuse, or perhaps he was under the influence of the Black Lodge or something like that. In this episode, I just didn't know what to think at first. In this scene where we see him in the hangar with the guy with the submachine gun, he looked scared to me initially, and then obviously he gained some confidence in that conversation with Red. He gave up his power reluctantly in that moment. After he was allowed to leave, he actually was crying because he had been so emasculated by Red. He was so angry that he had lost this personal power that he just was off on another planet. When he hit the kid, it was a shocking moment. There was a horrible build up to that moment. I wondered whether Richard knew what the hell he had done. And then it seemed like he did know what he had done, because he got out of the car and he wiped his car down, and seemingly he seemed to know what he had done. So he's just a thug, a complete bastard. This kind of character, I think, could never really be redeemed after the slaying of a child like this. He didn't see the child and then deliberately hit him, but the lack of remorse afterwards suggests that he is just soulless, basically, or that the drug he is on has eroded the part of himself that has any compassion. And I really don't want him to be Audrey's son. I think that would be horrible, I really do. I mean, if you think about the rest of the Horne family, we had Jerry and Ben, who actually did some pretty nasty things and were involved in some pretty nefarious activities in the original Twin Peaks, but both of their characters, I think, came to a point where they were redeemed by the audience and they were embraced by the audience. But I can't see that ever happening with this Richard Horne guy, now that he has committed this act against the child. I just can't see that ever happening. So I think that Richard Horne is a bad guy, and he's going to stay a bad guy, and I'd be surprised if anything else happened. I also thought in that scene with Red, my thoughts went back to Shelley and the interaction that she'd had with him in the roadhouse, and I thought, fuck Shelley, just stay the fuck away from this guy, because the kind of trouble that you could get into with dealing with Red is just unimaginable. So my fears for Shelley are really ramped up right now. So we meet Carl Rodd in this episode. We find out that Carl Rodd, well, we know this actually from reading the secret history of Twin Peaks, but Carl Rodd has had experiences in life that have made him special, and we see that he can see the child's soul leave his body, and what the child's soul looks like is like a flash of gold. Actually, it kind of looked like the shape of a fire as it was rising into the sky. Carl Rodd, when he got into that car, he mentioned Alinda, so I don't know where that's going, but it was great to see that character back. And Harry Dean Stanton is a very interesting actor. He does a lot when he's on screen, I think. Fascinated to see where we're going to go with his character as well, knowing what we know about him. So we get a bit more information about Harry. Not Harry. A bit more information about Frank Truman and the fact that his son committed suicide because he couldn't handle being in the army. That was the explanation that was given for the suicide. Turns out the reason that I keep wanting to call Frank Harry, and it's so annoying to me because they are completely different people, but I think he's fitted so well into that sheriff role that I keep wanting to call him Harry. And if I refer to him as Harry in any videos, I apologise. I mean Frank. So it turns out that Frank's wife may be this hysterical and challenged woman because of the fact that her son has committed suicide. Perhaps part of her blames Harry. Perhaps a part of her blames Frank. But the fact that Frank is taking it suggests that he knows that this is kind of justified in a way, that her behaviour is the direct result of the son committing suicide, and that perhaps she was a different person before, and he's waiting for that person to come back. I thought it was an interesting moment when Hawke dropped his coin and it revealed that something had been hidden in the door of the toilets. First of all, the coin sort of linked back to that scene with Red and Richard, so it kind of felt like the same magic was at play. And then the realization that the manufacturer of the door led back to his heritage, and then finding what he found in the door. Now, what did he find? To me, the first thing I thought of was Laura Palmer's diary pages. Now, someone did comment on a video of mine the other day that they thought that what was missing was Laura Palmer's diary pages that she ripped out of her diary. And that possibly what was on the missing pages was the information that Annie relayed to Laura in the scene in Fire Walk with Me. Now that's an interesting possibility because of the fact that Annie is missing in action right now, and we don't know what became of her character. I was kind of thinking on from that in the last episode and thinking about Norma and the fact that she was quite mothering towards Shelley's daughter, which perhaps suggests to me that she doesn't have nieces or nephews of her own, or children of her own in fact, and that perhaps she was a surrogate kind of aunt because she couldn't have any family of her own because Annie wasn't there, or Annie was dead, or there are multiple possibilities obviously. But if this is what Hawke has found, then obviously Laura is going to be linked in again in a very important way, and it's also possible that Annie might be linked in as well. But that looked like that's what Hawke found. And if Hawke found those, does it suggest that the one-armed man had put them there, or had somebody else put them there? I just instantly thought of that scene with the one-armed man injecting themselves in the toilets. I think it's pretty whacked out to imagine that those pages have been in there for 25 years, if that is the case. So there were a lot of different pieces in this episode, the same as was in the previous 5 episodes, but to be honest, I didn't find it as enthralling as some of the other episodes that have gone before. Some of the stuff with Dougie is getting a little repetitive, but I also feel that in regards to Dougie, that they're building up to this moment when we are going to get the real Coop back, and that it will be a payoff for having to wait so long, that moment when we finally get him back. There were a few disjointed scenes which are so short and random that they're almost forgettable, but like the scene in Las Vegas with, I think his name is Patrick Fischler, and he was looking at his computer screen and a red square appeared. That looked like that was some kind of code that was appearing to him, and I just don't know what was going on in that scene, and I think we'll get there eventually. But also the scene with the little man who was an assassin. What can I say about that? Fairly disgusting murder scene. I guess there was supposed to be some kind of level of black comedy in there because of the guy being quite little and seemingly possibly, you know, he's a kind of stature that you would think that you would be able to overcome him, but he was like kind of a ninja assassin, I guess, and he was completely able to get into that building where the lady was and just to completely annihilate her in a matter of seconds. It was horrific. And now Dougie is his next target. I'm guessing that Cooper is going to have to survive many attempts on his life. Janie and her approach to the two guys was quite funny, I thought, because she just kicks ass basically. She is such a strong woman, and she doesn't seem to realize that she's in danger. She doesn't seem to be aware that there is a possibility of her just being completely attacked or overcome or anything. She just says it like it is. I like that approach with Jeremy Davis, right, from Lost, as one of the bad guys. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I may do a theory video later in the week if any ideas crop to mind. Thanks for watching today. If you have any comments or theories about this episode, you may leave them in the comments below. You can also subscribe to my channel if you like Twin Peaks or David Lynch, and you can follow me on Twitter at The Vlog Lady, and I'm on Facebook at the same name.